Every race to me is almost an individual experience, and it's almost like the races within the race. I mean, ultra run's so long
Mm.
that there's more than one race going on there. But there have been instances where, I've surprised myself. I became a runner I didn't know existed. I popped out and I was like, whoa, who is this person? I know that maybe sounds like I'm crazy, but sometimes you just run a performance or run the last part harder than you ever thought you could possibly do, and you'll never be able to repeat it. It's just that moment. I tell them to be in the now moment. It's and to have a mantra where you're really checking in on yourself, especially in an ultra. Kind of start with your feet and work all the way up to your head. So you're kind of asking yourself the questions of what might be happening to make sure that it's in a good place. Like, how's your stomach doing? How are your quads doing? How are your arms feeling? Is your back tight? And kind of check in with your mind and just keep doing that. And it's people would always ask me, for instance, how can you run 100 miles? And I'm like, it doesn't seem like 100 miles. I was so in the now moment. It seemed like a flick of a finger. It just seemed like it was over before it started. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's what I tell them: not to worry, be free, run free, and not think about your form. Your form will take you for most things. I mean, there's some others, but I think kids running free, if you structure them too much, they lose their ability to experience the moment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ultra Running Summit Series. I'm your host, Eric Rommel, and my guest today is Ann Trason. Ann is one of the world's most decorated female ultra runners. She's set over 20 world records during her career, won the Western States 114 times, and has been to the Olympic marathon trials 3 times. She resides in Northern California with her 3 dogs, Zoe, Hazel, and Alexandra. Alexandra was rescued from Bhutan via the Bhutan Animal Rescue and Care. Through her company, Ann Trason Coaching, she provides clients with individualized training plans, nutritional advice, and race strategies. She's also the vice president on the board of directors for Raptors Running Club, which is a program focused on empowering youth through athletics. So welcome, Ann. Thanks for being with me here today. How are you?
Great, and thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Why don't you start us off by telling us how you first got involved in running and what sort of led you to decide to become a runner?
Well, I think I was very fortunate to have grown up on and had a mother that liked to walk. We had a lot of dogs on the beach. And there's nothing is the second most beautiful thing in the world to me than seeing dogs run on a beach is to see children run on a beach. So my first memories of running were my mom walking on the beach and I running with my dogs on the beach.
Wow,
So,
that's incredible. And you grew up, I guess, closer to the coast in California?
yeah, my mom was a marine biologist. She was quite an inspiring person. She got her a PhD from UC Berkeley in biology and or zoology, really, in 1959. She was the only woman in her class.
Wow, that's
And
inspiring.
yeah, I had huge whatever you want to say, footprints to follow. I never really did. But she wanted to teach, so she didn't. She moved to a small community near the beach, Pacific Grove, and taught at Monterey Peninsula Community College and was the what do you say? She was the department head for over 20 years.
Wow, that's quite the career. That's very Northern California too. I mean, UC Berkeley is sort of like the college in Northern California, isn't it?
Yeah, I was always surprised that I was accepted. I don't think I'd be now, but I also went there. My father went there. Um, it's a real cool place. So cool that it was hard for me to leave. I mean, I just moved from the Bay Area a couple of years ago, and after high school, I just stayed in that area, but always, bordering on Berkeley or in Berkeley itself.
Very cool. When did you first start ultra running then, or when was your first sort of debut into the ultra running world?
1985. I thought I wanted to get into endurance sports. I ran in high school. It was very competitive, and it was always against the clock. And I didn't flourish at it. I did it. I mean, I loved the movement. I loved being around my other teammates, but I hated the clock. So I
Mm,
wanted to do something, challenge myself in a way that I hadn't been challenged before, and doing some distances where finishing would be the reward itself and not the clock.
mm. I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, I've been in sports before where it's all about the score on the board and the points and everything, and it's too much of a headache for me. I like things where I can just kind of let loose and just enjoy the scenery and the nature along the way, and then the finish line is the reward.
Yeah, yeah, then the finish line is the reward, and also it's so much easier to have a good day because when you're doing like a mile, or I even did a 10K in high school, believe it or not. It's too easy to have a bad day because you can't always set a PR.
Mm.
So this way, yeah, I just wanted to see if I could. As a matter of fact, when I saw an advertisement really in a throwaway running kind of thing called the schedule that we have here, I thought it was a typo. I didn't think anyone could run 50 miles.
Hmm.
So I called the race director and said, is this a 5-mile race or a 50-mile race?
Hmm.
And they said, yes, it was a 50-mile race. Yeah, I said, whoa, people do that. And they said, yep. So
I've had that response from several of my family members and friends too, where I tell them like, "Oh, I'm running ultra marathons," and they're like, you tell them the
yeah,
distance, and they're like, "Whoa, that's 50, like 50 miles," and
yeah.
it's a shock for some people to believe, but I find it's peaceful when you're not racing against the clock, isn't it?
Well, that day it wasn't like that much fun, as a matter of fact, because it was very hot. It was 110 degrees. It was the hottest day on record for that race.
Holy
And
moly.
I had no idea. It was more comical
Mm.
than anything because I thought for sure, I mean, it looked like every aid station was, and we're talking 1985, I'm a dinosaur, so there was really no information on how to partake in one of these activities.
Hmm.
So I show up without a water bottle because aid stations are 5 to 7 miles. Why would you need a water bottle? No
Yeah.
food. You just eat what's in the aid stations and you just, wait till the next aid station.
Hmm. I guess there wasn't as much emphasis on the coaching programs, and the preparation for it wasn't as well documented.
There was no information. As a matter of fact, Sally Edwards had the course record. I don't know how many people are familiar with her, but she started the Fleet Feet chain. So there was a Fleet Feet sort of kind of close to me. So I went to the Fleet Feet all happy that I had signed up for this and said, okay, I'm doing this. How do I train for it? And they said, just because the owner of the franchise does this doesn't mean that we know anything about it. We don't know anyone who's run that far.
Okay.
And that's when I realized I was kind of in bad situation here, on knowing what to do.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
I only had 6 weeks, so it was sort of like, well, I'll just run some, um, and I played around with always running where there would be water. I planned my runs where there'd be water fountains.
hmm yeah, I certainly have that luxury in my training too. The trails I train on surround a university campus, so anytime I'm really feeling desperate, I can just find a trail that leads up to the top and go to the campus and refill my bottle. But
Well, I never trained with a water bottle because
mm,
it never crossed my mind. But luckily in this race, it's why I love ultras, this gentleman, Bruce Van Borstel, and his dear wife, Carol, we became friends afterwards, said, you need to carry a water bottle. At the next aid station, Carol will give you a water bottle. So it was like I went to ultra running school
hmm
instead of a race because then he was teaching me things along the way. And because of that, I finished. Otherwise, I don't know how far I would have gotten, but it wouldn't have been anywhere close to the finish line.
Yeah. That's an amazing story, actually, like a true trial by fire example.
Oh, it was trial by fire. And
Yeah.
also in that race, Sally Edwards, I did something I tell my runners not to do, is to idolize people. So I idolized her. I'd read her books. So I come up to her as like this little, puppy, jumping up and down, telling her how much I adored her and how I brought my book for her to sign. And she was just like the greatest thing ever. And she just looks at me and she goes, I can spot a rabbit when I see one.
Hmm.
And my feelings were hurt because I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, like rabbits go out too fast. And I said, you're calling me a rabbit. And
Yeah.
I didn't like that. And so I just took off. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm not a rabbit. And I'm going to prove to Ms. Sally Edwards, I'm not a rabbit. So for the rest of the time, that's really what I was thinking. And when my boyfriend at the time picked me up with 20 miles to go, even though he told me I was running very slowly, I kept talking about not being a rabbit. Eventually he says, I'm sick of you talking about the rabbit. Then with 3 miles to go, you see the top of the hill. It's really far. And my boyfriend had stopped talking to me about how slow we were running. He now was saying, this is stupid, it's hot. And he sat in a chair. He says, I'm not running up that hill. If you want to run up the hill, go right ahead. He also said some things I probably shouldn't say on the interview, but he was having kind of a tantrum. So I just left him down there. It took him 2 hours. I didn't see him for 2 hours. Yep. It was
Wow.
pretty hysterical.
And so that day you became the wolf and not the rabbit?
I don't know what I was. I was someone to just prove to Sally that I wasn't a rabbit.
Mm.
I had something to prove. And I found some inner strength that I didn't know I had.
Was it a case where you felt like you had to channel some reserve energy, or do you feel like you paced yourself fairly well in that race?
I was shocked that I paced myself pretty well because I had no idea what I was doing.
Mm.
And they were serving up things like erg and dates and all these things, and it tasted like sweat.
Mm-hmm.
So what you had in 85 isn't like what you have now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I'll have to say though, the next couple days I could barely walk.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that from even just my first marathon. I didn't do it properly. I had bad form, and by the end of the race, I was leaning on one knee and rather than staying balanced. So I ended up hurting myself a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it happens, and it's part of the learning process. I mean, that day I just had to push past a wall, and I found the mental strength to do it. I'm wondering if you've had similar experiences where you had a wall to face mentally, and how you pushed past it during a race.
Every race to me is almost an individual experience, and it's almost like the races within the race. I mean, ultra run's so long that there's more than one race going on there. But there have been instances where, I've surprised myself. I became a runner I didn't know existed. I popped out, and I was like, whoa, who is this person? I know that maybe sounds like I'm crazy, but sometimes you just run a performance or run the last part harder than you ever thought you could possibly do, and you'll never be able to repeat it. It's just that moment. I've had experiences like that. But
What sort of
I was always trying to run against Trason, and that's not a good thing to do because you never win.
Mm-hmm. I always try and run better than the person I was the day before. And not only in running, I try and live better than the person I was the day before. That's sort of my mantra I carry with myself.
I'm like that too. Every day I try and do better.
Do you believe that you're born with a purpose, or do you think that's something that you've had to discover in life for yourself and decide for yourself what your purpose is?
I think I'm going on for the ride, but I think you kind of end up places that you're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, things happen for a reason, and sometimes you don't know what that reason is, but I really think things happen for a reason.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is just something about life that seems too planned out, or like it makes sense when you think back, but when you're in the heat of the moment, it doesn't always seem like it's adding up to anything.
Yeah, I just think if you stay positive and you stay in the now moment and try and do better, and most things, I mean, there are some things that never will be good, like the death of a parent, the sickness of a parent, loss of a child, but for the most part, staying positive, staying active. I think if you're active, it really helps. I like to be active and not just sitting around watching TV or something.
Yeah.
I get more creative and feel better if I'm moving.
Mm-hmm.
Life seems better. Yeah, life seems better to me in motion.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Does running have a spiritual aspect for at all to you, or would you say it's mostly a physical activity?
Oh no, it's both. I mean, there's the physical part, but there's a lot of spiritual aspects to it, I think. I mean, you go out long enough, there's a lot of clarity that comes to mind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like going more than 20-mile runs when I could run. It seems like there was a distance, 50K, and training runs where you could see things and figure out things and feel more bonded with nature. But it took me a while in distance or time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the long training runs.
Yeah, there's an element of dedication too, and stoicism and patience and all sorts of virtues that go along with running a long distance like that.
Well, I call them the P's of ultraing, to be quite. There's patience and planning and purpose, and there's a lot of things like that.
Speaking of planning, what would you say, other than appropriate footwear and clothing and water, what would you say are the 4 or 5 essentials that you bring with you on a long run?
Oh, flashlights for sure.
Mm.
I always, even though I sometimes plan to go out for, say, a 4-hour run, I always have a flashlight or two. And if I'm racing or was racing, a headlamp and a handheld. I like to have both. But honestly, a lot of times what would happen, I'd go out for a run and go, you know what? I think I'll just go over to here or there or over to that. And what was to be a 4-hour run would turn out to be a 12-hour run. And it was always a good idea to have a flashlight in case I ended up in the dark.
Mm.
I've done that before where I've ended up in the dark and said, oh no, not this again, Anne. You know better. I kind of just let the day take me. And so I would always have those backups.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like you really live in the moment when you run.
Yeah, it's what I like to do. Now I do more hiking, but it's the same thing. You know, I'll start out and I'll like, oh, I'll just go up there, do this, and try and always carry a little extra food in case the day takes you someplace new or different, or you go a different way back.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that you'd bring with you as an essential? Food and flashlights?
I like to have handhelds, probably always a jacket in case it gets cold.
Yep.
Lightweight jacket, good hat. Not hugely use sunglasses, depending on the day if it's super hot, but I like a good hat.
Yeah, me
And good
too.
socks. I like to have if it's going to be a long run, a new pair of socks. I like the new socks that haven't been washed. I don't know what it is, but also you can be sure that they don't have rocks in them.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, that was always like a little present to myself. that I could put on a fresh pair of new socks right out of the box. I was fortunate to be sponsored by Nike in the day, so they'd send me like lots of socks.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like say, cool, man. I'd have enough socks for every long run. I would. And then I'd wear them on the shorter runs.
Mm-hmm.
But all long runs were like, oh, I'm going to get my new socks out.
That's like Christmas morning for me. I always tell people to get me socks on Christmas, and then I end up getting dozens and dozens of pairs, and it's just, that's what I like to get on Christmas.
Well, I'll have to send you some. I have some really nice Drymax socks that he made for my circle group.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely. I'd take you up on that.
What size do you wear?
Really, it depends on the brand, but somewhere between like a 10 and a 12.
Cool. Okay, I can do that.
Cool. Have you heard that they're making waterproof socks now?
Yeah, I've seen those. I've tried that, but I like the Drymax because they just kind of dry fast. There's a reason that they're called Drymax, so they're my favorite socks for running and hiking. Because if they get wet, they dry.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of wool socks because it's pretty cold up here in Vancouver this time of year, but I find that wool maintains its warmth even if it's wet.
Oh yeah, wool's good. Wool's real.
Mm-hmm.
I like to wear a nice wool t-shirt or long sleeve shirt. Kind of old school, but especially hiking.
Yeah, it's durable too. It's material that's not going to wear out as fast as some synthetics.
And also wool's come a long way. I mean, it used to be all scratchy and stuff, kind of unpleasant. But now it's kind of soft and feels good. You can almost go to bed in it.
Yeah.
Which didn't used to be the case.
Yeah, I'm sure in the next 5 or 6 years or something like that, they'll start coming out with wool underwear and who knows what else, because it's really taken a revolutionary path in the last couple of years.
Maybe we should Google that. I bet there is such a thing as
well. Yeah, I'm sure it's out there. I shouldn't speak too quickly.
Yeah, wool bra. How about that? Whoa.
Yeah. They make everything now out of pretty much anything.
Good wool hat too.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's knit me a few wool hats, and I always like to wear those when I'm out on a colder day.
Oh, cool. Yeah, my mom was a big knitter. I have a lot of sweaters that she knit for me that are precious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're invaluable too. They've got so much character to them and so much love put into them.
Yeah.
Is there any mental or spiritual practices that you include in your training or that you recommend to the kids that you coach?
I tell them to be in the now moment. It's and to have a mantra where you're really checking in on yourself, especially in an ultra. Kind of start with your feet and work all the way up to your head. So you're kind of asking yourself the questions of what might be happening to make sure that it's in a good place. Like, how's your stomach doing? How are your quads doing? How are your arms feeling? Is your back tight? And kind of check in with your mind and just keep doing that. And it's people would always ask me, for instance, how can you run 100 miles? And I'm like, it doesn't seem like 100 miles. I was so in the now moment. It seemed like a flick of a finger. It just seemed like it was over before it started. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's what I tell them, not to worry, be free. Run free and not think about your form. Your form will take you for most things. I mean, there's some others, but I think kids running free, if you structure them too much, they lose their ability to experience the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they lose an element of passion that would go along with it too, and enjoyment.
That's my belief anyway. But,
yeah, I completely agree.
I'd love to be around, especially middle school children.
Mm-hmm.
They're like little adults, but they're not have opinions yet. They're kind of open sponges to anything, and it's a lot of playing and games and experiencing different things of life for the first time in a different angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly they have a lot to learn, and they like to learn at that age. I remember being at that age and just soaking up everything like a sponge and wanting to take it all in and just experience the world.
Yeah, that's
And it's
that's
important to keep that mindset, I think, into adulthood too. It's a lot of people do lose sight of it.
well, I've been told I shouldn't say this, but one of the things I would tell the kids when I used to coach middle school is when they became 13, they were older than me.
Mm.
Because I would say I have the heart of a 12-year-old. And I was told that was starting to sound a little bit like I had a mental illness, so I should cut that out. I was like, you're taking life too seriously when the parents would really come up to me. I was like, whoa, you guys are way too serious. But I
Yeah.
like to think that I have that spirit. I try to keep myself open to that spirit of a 12-year-old.
Yeah. It's a state of mind and it's a state of being, and it really comes back to living in the now, doesn't it?
That's what I think. I mean, that's how I raced
Mm-hmm.
and how I trained. It was more like that than um, more of an adulting kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about your biggest race day meltdown and how you overcame it?
Oh, I had so many. Oh, yeah. But the one that really, when you said that, I had failed Western States twice. And one of those had been a meltdown, but this one I thought was pretty hysterical. I got to Michigan Bluff, where usually the meltdowns start, and it was super hot. And I was just like, why am I doing this?
And that's
And
about mile 65, is it? Michigan Bluff?
mile 50, 55,
Okay.
55. Yeah, 55. Yeah, 55. And we had an ice chest, my crew, and I just sat down on it and I said, it is so bloody hot out there in those canyons. And this guy that was crewing me, a nice man, who wasn't a runner, he was a basketball player, super tall, very sweet, just looked at me and he said, do you think it's only hot for you? And then he said something he never said, I can't repeat here. And I just looked at him and I was so shocked because it was one of those aha moments. It's like, you're right. We're all going through the same thing, Anne. Why are you complaining about it? You can't change it. Don't try and change things you can't change. So I just grabbed my water bottles and I just started running.
Mm.
And I thought about that moment a lot when having somewhat of a bad day or a bad moment. Ups and downs, and these ultras can be pretty severe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
say it's like a life in a day. That's what I say about especially the Western States course. So you go through a lot of, at least I did. Some people just smooth sailing. Maybe they have a smooth sailing life. My life hasn't been smooth sailing. I've had a lot of ups and downs, but that means I felt things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The ups and downs really, and how people weather the storm really defines the life that they live.
Yeah, I think it's not the situation, it's how you deal with the situation that defines you.
Mm-hmm. Because ultimately we will all face walls, but it's how you decide to get through that wall or over it or around it or what it is you choose to do about it that defines you, and it's the result that you have to live with too.
Yeah, because I've been diagnosed with the rheumatoid arthritis. I can't run anymore. My
Okay.
joints just super hurt. I know everyone's like, go run. I'm like, I can't. But I'm fortunate that I have this drug Humira that helps so that I can walk.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'd be, could be on the wheelchair bound list. Be
Mm-hmm.
really bad for Anne. I'd probably be bad for the neighborhood because I'd be out there, with one of those electric wheelchairs terrorizing the neighborhood. But it was hard when they said that. And when I started having the symptoms, I was like, oh, my life's over, and had a little bit of a pity party. I'll have to admit, I was having a little bit of a pity party. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to die from this, not at least right now. And I'm just going to do what I can do and not stop thinking about what I can't do.
Mm.
So I really decided, I wrote lists of things I could do, and I wanted to get better at those. And that's what I'm doing now.
Right
And
on.
I'm challenging myself in a way that I never thought I could, and finding it very rewarding, even though it's not running.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Can you tell me what maybe 2 or 3 things on that list are?
Well, I've taken up doing this. Ted Corbett. He was one of the modern day ultra runners. When he couldn't run, he walked. And so, like this past weekend, the end of Western States finishes at this very sacred track, Placer High School track. I've only run around that track 14 times. It's so sacred. I would never ever run all the way around it any other time. Finish a training run, you stop at the gate. You're crewing someone, you run across the track. You don't run on the track with them. I'm a little superstitious about that even now. But we had a 24-hour run there this past weekend. Might be why I'm a little tired, I have to admit. But my dad's been rather ill too, and so I thought I'm just going to go out and do the 24 and do it as a walk and circle up some positive vibes and send them to him.
Right on.
So I thought probably at some point, because usually in the day when I did that, or tried to, about 2 a.m, I'd find a bed. I'd be going, this is insane. I don't want to be here. And a bed sounds really nice because I'm tired. And that was pretty much my mantra. But this time I stayed out there the whole time, except for a few times to look for Mr. Rock that was in my shoe because I didn't use new socks. I got a little rock and I couldn't find that little rock. But anyway, I got a blister. But I stayed out pretty much, except for bathroom breaks, the whole 24 hours. And I somehow managed to walk 70 miles around a track without going bonkers.
Wow.
And I had fun. Oh, it was a lot of fun. Yep, very, very enjoyable. It's so much fun. I'm now going to do, I'm going to Vegas and going to do a 48-hour. And then I just was invited to do a 72-hour.
Holy moly.
I'm not going to do it in the same, be out there the whole time. I'm going to take breaks and figure out. The one in, for example, the 48-hour, I need to have a more realistic goal. So I want, if you do 100 miles, you get a buckle. And my buckle collection is rather rusty. I haven't had one in a while, and it's kind of lonely, my buckle collection. So if I go to Vegas, this Jackpot, isn't that a cool name for a Vegas? Yeah.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah, Jackpot Festival. They have a bunch of races going on. If I can do 100 miles, I will get a buckle.
Wow, yeah, that's very reasonable too. I mean, that's only 2.2 miles per hour that you'd need to do.
Yeah, and it's a 2-mile loop, not a quarter mile. And I think it might even be dirt. And I asked, I can use poles even.
Nice.
And my dogs, I'm taking 2 of my dogs, can do a few laps with me. It's going to be, that could be quite fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful time, actually. If I could get to Vegas, I'd love to join you.
Well, come on down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can wear different hats and outfits. Jester's going to be there. He was at this past weekend. I don't know if you know about Ed, the Jester, who works. He has Jester's out. He has a world record for running the most hundreds in the world ever.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ed's going too. I'm very happy about that.
What's his name? Ed?
Ed, well, he's known as the Jester.
The Jester. Okay, I'll have to look him up.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty famous. He has a website.
Right on.
Or a Facebook site or something. Yeah, but he does wear a Jester's outfit with a bunch of bells.
Cool.
I thought the bells would drive me nuts, but they're just like my little dog bells. You kind of get used to it.
Yeah, they keep the bears away too, don't they?
I don't know if those would. They might attract it. They sound really like almost like a symphony.
Okay, neat.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
People tell me training out here in BC, I should be wearing bells or something like that when I go out into the woods, because people are afraid of bears, but I just say that I'm probably breathing so loudly and talking to myself so much that I scare the bears away.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys, where you are, if I was in Calgary, I'd be taking one of those low things or do something, because Calgary has those big grizzly bears, but I don't know if you have them down in
yeah, certainly not in like the Metro Vancouver area, but in the interior of BC, I think they have some grizzlies.
Oh yeah, my mother was born in Canada.
Oh, cool.
Or really was from Canada. She was born in Oakland. It's a long story, but she ended. Her mother died when she was 4, and her father moved her back to Canada. Yeah, she has quite an interesting heritage. My mother was a Bethune. That's my middle name.
Mm.
Canadians, that name means something, especially if you're from Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I was related to a gentleman called Norman Bethune.
Yeah, I'm from not Ontario, but the province right next to it, from Manitoba. But I've moved
Oh,
out here to
okay.
the west, yeah, just so that I can have some more mountains to run on.
Yeah. Norman Bethune was known for bringing modern medicine to China.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay, like Western medicine.
Well, he was big into blood transfusions. So in the Spanish Civil War, he was the first person to experiment and succeed at doing blood transfusions at the front line of a war.
Interesting.
Yeah, blood transfusions then were not considered. They were pretty deadly.
Yeah, and I mean, if you get the wrong blood type, that can be fatal.
Yeah, well, he was experimenting. People didn't know about that, so he also a great thoracic surgeon before that.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are good books have written about him if you want a good read.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, have you heard or read a book? It's called The Marathon Monks of Mount Hiei.
No, but that sounds really good. I'll have to get that.
Yeah, it's about a Japanese order of monks. I think they're still in existence, but one of their traditional lineage rituals is this process where it's like a 3-year training process where they slowly work up to walking these 50-mile a day marathons that they call them through the mountains of Kyoto.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So the culmination of it is they spend 100 consecutive days walking 50 miles a day or something like that. And it's a really amazing book to read.
Wow, because usually, people, I have a friend who's doing one now, one of these 10-day meditations, and everyone says it would be good for me. And I'm like, there is no way I'm going to sit for 10 days.
Mm.
Can't do it. I mean, I could not talk for 10 days. That's not a problem. But because I do a lot of backpacking, go out in the woods and just with my dogs, although I do talk to them. But the idea of just sitting there and concentrating on your breath, I'm sorry, I respect people who do it, but I couldn't do it. That would make me crazy. I have to move.
Mm-hmm.
I think one person told me once I was born, my past life, I was a shark. Because, when sharks stop moving, they die.
Yeah. They don't really even sleep. They just let the tide kind of move them around, carry them.
Yeah. So that's what my friends used to call me.
Yeah. I've had to learn to sit still. I was always a very active child. I couldn't tapping my feet in class and moving around. And yeah, running is perfect for me in that way because it's even if you want to take a break, you just slow down, keep walking, you're always moving.
Yeah, well, this is, I guess it's going off topic, but once I got up and started walking, and I just started running, my mom says they put bells on my shoes because they wanted to hear. I put bells on my dogs now, so I know where they are. But my first pair of walking shoes and all subsequent walking shoes, till they could tell me not to do it, I had bells on them.
Okay.
I still have a pair of shoes that have the bells on them. My poor parents. My brother was like a couch potato. He was easy, you just put him there, he wouldn't move. And they were always like, where's Anne? Oh, she's like running across the field.
Yeah.
Like into the street. I'm surprised I wasn't run over.
Yeah. Nowadays, some parents might strap a GPS to their child or something like that.
Or they put their Fitbit that they need to have from work or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so.
Are you a very habitual person? Are there sort of habits that you rely on a daily basis?
No, I like to be free.
Okay.
I mean, I have rituals with my dogs, of course.
Yeah.
I have to go for a walk. I like my cup of coffee, but I do need to take care of them. But other than that, it's like every day is an adventure. I love adventures. So I just keep thinking of new things to do.
Yeah. Just keep adding to the list, right?
Yeah. I got this. I'm going to pick it up in a little bit. It's like this scoot dog. It's a scooter.
Cool.
That has a harness on the back of it. It's connected. It's like a kiddie scooter. You stand on it and push with one leg. I'm getting these big tires put on it, but it's like for the Iditarod people. I got it from Bend, Oregon, from this really cool dude. So I'm having bike store put it together so it's done properly, because I am a little afraid of it. I might break a bone, especially with my rheumatoid arthritis, but I can't wait to get out on the trail. You can do fire roads on this.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I might even start a meetup or something. We'll have a whole scoop dog club in Auburn.
Cool. You'll
they
do
don't
the
know
Western
that
States
there.
Trail.
I don't know if you can do that on the scoop dog, because, but probably someone could. I don't know if my balance, but it's something to work on.
Yeah.
I'll see how much of the trail I can do on that. But first, I'm going to just take it to a very smooth surface and wear a bike helmet. And my friends think maybe some pads on my knees and elbows.
Yeah, that would definitely help. I always had to wear those when I was skateboarding.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm a little, the dude said it's pretty, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to get one of those trikes and have the dogs there.
Mm-hmm.
But he says this is more free. Yeah, can't remember this guy's name. But and I like red, so it's red. It's really cool.
Right on. Yeah, red's, I think, probably my favorite color.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my shoes are red, my jacket's red, red hat.
Well, I liked this book when I was a kid called Anne Likes Red, because I had to have everything red.
Cool.
And so, there was a little children's book. I just got it. I was thinking about it the other night. And I guess I was bored or something, and I was just on Amazon, and I bought it. So it's in my library now.
Yeah, right on.
It's a kid's reader, but I read it to Alex. She likes it because she's a baby.
Yeah, there's probably tons of philosophical value in that kid's book, though. I always find when I reread some of my childhood favorites that there's always a philosophical meaning. If it's not overt, it's subtly woven into the storyline.
Exactly.
Do you feel like your career in running and your involvement in the running community has enabled you to change the world?
Oh, no. I think that's more for people to say after, whatever. But no, I feel very grateful that I'm in this community. I can't believe, even just recently, with my partaking in basically being a tortoise, that people are so supportive of it. It's kind of really almost brings tears to my eyes when I think of how nice people are and how they're glad that I'm out there walking around the track. That's mind-blowing. It's you used to run, I was telling one of these friends of mine that he doesn't know anything about ultra running. It's always fun to talk to people who don't know anything about the sport or have any respect for it, to be quite honest. He's a hiking buddy of mine. I was like, whoa, I used to be able to run 90, 92 miles in 12 hours. And now I'm excited because I hiked 37. Where is my life taking me? And I'm proud of it. I'm more proud of that than I was in 92 miles. And go figure that one out. What's wrong with Anne? I don't know. But that's how it is. Maybe because this has taken more of a challenge, I've really had to work for it harder, mentally, physically, and put that other Anne aside and say that isn't there anymore. Again, it just gets back to work with what you can do.
It could be an element of how much you enjoy it too.
Oh, I think really what's happened in the last, especially since this, I feel like an ultra runner again. I kind of lost that. I coach people. I just felt like, I was a coach and I helped people, but I wasn't as much part of the community or could talk the language or feel the feeling. It's like a feeling. And out there on the track, it's like, whoa, we're all going through the same thing. And I've realized I wasn't taking good care of myself because I wasn't giving it enough respect. Because I thought, if you walk, you don't have to eat, you don't have to drink. Oh, wrong.
Yeah.
I paid the price on that one. I was pretty much a mess at the end. So you can't do it on Mountain Dew and 2 pieces of pizza. Not a good idea. No way. Well, no. Next time I'm getting out my goo products. I talked to goo. Yeah, I think electrolytes are going to be really a nice addition to my doing this and getting some really good nutrition.
Yeah. Well, the brain is, regardless of how much physical energy you exert, but the brain uses most of the calories and the oxygen that your body intakes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to reverting to 100 calories is what I tell people, 100 calories every 30 minutes.
Every 30 minutes. If you walk,
every 30 minutes I take 100. That's how I did it in the day. And then I just didn't poo-pooed what I was doing now. And I think I'll enjoy it more. Maybe I won't go any faster. but I think it'll be more enjoyable, especially at the end. I think I'll recover faster too. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you've got some really interesting things on the horizon, actually, with the 48-hour challenge and the 70, was it 72 hours was the other one?
Yeah, I did get invited to do an 888K one, but I'm going to maybe put that on the back burner possibly for next year. But yeah, I'm also doing a 13-hour in Seattle. My cougars that I've had at, you get these cougar trophies.
Yeah.
When you win Western States, they're absolutely gorgeous. They've been on loan at some running stores around. I've decided they should take road trips, so I'm going to go take one of my cougars up to Seattle.
Cool. Maybe I'll come and visit you. That's pretty close to where I'm from.
Yeah, so I have a good friend up there, and she has a running store she really likes, and we've been in contact. So one of those Ms. Cougars is going to have a temporary home in Seattle, and that means I can also partake in a 13-hour timed event in Seattle about the same time.
Very cool. I wish you the best of luck with all of those things.
It's fun, it's you just have, if I don't have adventures, then I'd die.
Yeah, like the shark, just always moving.
I'm always moving. Go catch Ann if you're lucky. I hear she's pretty slow, but she's having fun. Yeah.
Well, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Having fun and trying to be a good person and not hurting anyone. Yeah. And doing good for the world in the smallest ways you can. Bringing a dog back from Bhutan, helping out the Bhutan Animal Rescue Place. Those are the things that are really important.
I completely agree. Thanks for everything. Thanks for sharing your time with me. That's all the questions I have for today. I mean, if people want to get in touch with you or get a hold of you or just send you a message of encouragement, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Ann?
Well, I guess I'm on Facebook, although I'm not big on the social media. And Trason at gmail.com. It's just my name.
Okay.
At gmail.com. Yeah, I'll answer emails.
Very cool. It's been a pleasure having you here. So again, thank you so much for your time, and all the best in the future.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck with your running, and I hope to see you down in Auburn.
Yeah, I'm working towards Western States and a few other big races. So I'll definitely be working towards, well, focusing mostly on the qualifying races first and then on the big race after that.
Well, if you ever do states, I'll be there at the finish line, believe me.
Cool.
You also go right by my house because I live at mile 99.2.
That's such a fitting place. I look forward to the day that I pass by your house, Ann.
Yeah, me too. All right.
Very cool. Take care.
Well, yeah, you too. Bye-bye.